All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so here I am, this young girl. My parents are not around. So I'm already having that lack or that void. Then I'm in a situation where, as a child, I'm being sexually abused, but not knowing that that sexual abuse was really abuse until I've removed myself years on. I'm talking about adult life.
Right.
And then you sit back and you go, well, I'll be darned. That wasn't normal at all.
Right.
Right?
That's
I
very
mean,
common too.
and there's so many people who go through this. There's so many people who are going through abuse or going through, and or children, mind you. I say people, but I want to say children, because when you're a child, you don't know really exactly the magnitude of the trauma that you're experiencing
True.
until you're far removed from that trauma, or somebody tells you it's a trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're growing up, you don't know trauma. You don't even know the word, for God's sakes, right?
Yeah, we give it a
So,
different meaning as children.
exactly,
Yeah.
we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my beginnings. And I'm going to say this to you, to where I am today, and while I'm going through this process of who I am today and helping other people out with their lives and helping other people to heal. Remember earlier I said the lack that I had when I was a child is what made me the woman I am today. And I'm going to say this revelation did not happen overnight.
Right.
It wasn't, it didn't go like I was abused, I was abandoned. Hey, I'm going to be a woman that helps people, and I'm going to be that woman that helps people in their healing journey. It really didn't go that way, guys. There was a lot of headaches, a lot of heartaches, a lot of mistrust, a lot of distrust, a lot of guilt. And I could go through the list of all of the negative emotions that I had to go through. Unforgiveness, lots of unforgiveness,
Right.
and 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 frustration. But I'm going to tell you, the biggest one that I had of all was confusion. There was a lot of confusion. And the reason why confusion was the top of my list is because there's so many of us out there that can attest to the fact that they were hurt by their own family. They were hurt by the members of their family. And they went through some sort of trauma, whether it be big trauma or small trauma. And trauma is not for me to define for anybody else. Everybody has got to define their own trauma, because what may not have been traumatic to me may be the biggest trauma to somebody else.
Yes.
But my confusion, Sarai, came about when I recognized as an adult that all of the things that I'd gone through, they were not normal. And I put up the air quotes because normal is whatever we define it
Right.
as,
Mm-hmm.
but they were not normal. And as I recognized that not only were not normal, I recognized that they happened at the hands of people who I trusted. They
Right.
happened in the midst of people who I thought loved me. They happened while I was supposed to be protected, and hence the confusion.
Of course.
And there's a right, and there's a lot of us out there that's walking around with this confusion, like, but that's the person that was supposed to protect me, or that's the person who I loved,
Mm-hmm.
or and one of the biggest confusion came about is when you would see one family member who protected me and loved me and protected me from the world, but abused somebody else.
Right.
And that was just really confusing once I started wrapping my mind around it and seeing it as abuse as an adult. And I share my story because I know there are so many other people out there that's going through the confusion and the guilt and the lack of forgiveness, um, the self-worth issues, right? Feeling
Yes.
like they're not deserving, having a skewed and a misconception of what love is, not understanding the purity of what love should be because of growing up in that type of environment. So, but here's the thing about, go ahead, Sarai.
I'm letting you. I haven't interrupted you because I'm writing stuff down, but I haven't interrupted you because I don't want to interrupt the flow of your story. But you're dropping so many important points for
Yes,
anyone that there, because there might be people out there who have experienced a very similar type of traumatic experience, and then later have the same experience you have, where they had conflicted. When you're saying confusion, confusion shows up also as conflicted feelings. So the conflicted feeling is, I love this person, but now I realize they had abused me all that time and lied to me or tricked me or whatever it could be. And that's a big struggle. Like when in therapy and trauma therapy, we help people identify, their emotions and their feelings. But one of the most important feelings to help people identify is conflicted feelings, because
yes,
I could love someone but still be angry at them for what they've done to me. But for a
ab-
child, it's so confusing to have those two things unless you learn that it's okay to have those two feelings and that you have a right to have the angry feelings and you have a right to still love the person.
yes,
So I think that's like a super important point you made, because if we don't learn that, we grow up as adults who remain confused and remain
yes,
in relationships where we don't give ourselves permission to feel those two emotions at the same time and understand what they mean. Because I could love someone and still be so angry, resentful, whatever, to the point where I realize, hey, you know what, I love you, but I can't keep you in my life.
right,
But
right,
if you don't learn that growing up as an adult, it's very difficult to make that distinction because of the confusion. The confusion that you're talking about is like so on point. And I just want everyone out there to really understand that confusion really means conflicted feelings and conflicting thoughts.
perfect. And please feel free to interrupt. I will pick my flow back up because, with your knowledge as a licensed therapist, if anything that I'm telling within my flow of my story, if you find something that that your community needs, I'll go for it, because I've never attached it to conflicted feelings and conflicted thoughts in that manner, from a place where you're coming from. I just knew that I was confused as heck.
But okay, so now that we're talking about this, does it make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not only does it make sense to me, it it really kind of solidifies a lot of the struggles that I've found myself over my lifetime having. And it's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
conflicting feelings, and even the conflicting thoughts, where there were times when, and I have clients now that will do that. There are times when they just shut down from their family altogether. And um, I did that. There were times where I just shut down altogether. And I'm just like, okay, I am loving them, but I'm feeling right now that something is just not balanced.
And that's okay. And that's okay. That's what I want everyone to know. It's okay to say I love you, but I don't feel safe around you. Or I love you, but it's just not in the interest of my mental health to be around you. So, and
Yeah.
it's okay to do that. It's okay to have some people think that's not okay, but it's actually extremely common. It's the source of a lot of confusion, but it's also the source of a lot of poor decision making because of the
Yeah.
confusion. Like, do I love you or do I not? Like, and then you can stay stuck in that mode for years,
Yes.
10, 15, 20 years, and never do what's best for you.
Yes. And that's where the whole point of loving myself enough to say no. And a lot of times we find ourselves once, you know, because we've been through any type of abuse or any type of a scenario that allowed that those feelings, that confusion, the conflicting thoughts to happen, then we find ourselves being people pleasers, or we don't love ourselves enough or understand the purity of love to others and love to self to really say no and mean that no and be okay with it. So everything that you just said was, thank you so much, tied beautifully. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, you just gave me something tied in a bow.